But Puka Nacua already has 52 receptions. I mean, he's on a pace for 170 receptions. So we'll see. He definitely has a chance to get into this top 10 number and possibly break the mark, which Michael Thomas holds for the Saints. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL, the show that covers the top 10s after each week. And we're going to be doing the top 10s, whether it's a game level, season level, career level, and even the team level. We'll get to that as well. We'll also take a look at the standings and a couple other things. All right, that's going to be the new way I do this. I liked it after the last episode, which was the first time I tried this. Like I said in that one, there's plenty of outlets that tell you who they think is going to win the game. I was just another one. I prefer actually just to go through the stats and look at the who's doing well, and then you can use that information, whether if you're in fantasy or if you actually are trying to pick winners and losers of games. All right. So briefly, we'll take a quick look at the game stats from this past week. Let me get to that real quick. I actually thought I already had it here. All right. Yeah, we have it here. All right. So looking at the game stats already this year, I just wanted to update that real quick with the game on Monday night, which the Jaguars came back to win in the last, scored the winning touchdown with the 23 seconds to go. And if you saw that, what a crazy game that was. It was fun to watch. But throwing that game into the mix, looking at the top 10s, that jumped Patrick Mahomes up to number 5 as far as yards this past week of quarterbacks. He had 318 yards. It put him into the top 10. Trevor Lawrence did not make the top 10, not quite. So in the top 10 passing, he made that list. Other than that, no one else made the top 10 list from that game. All right, so let's look at the season level numbers right now then. And we'll start with the quarterbacks. As far as quarterback rating goes, I don't do this really on a career level, but on a season level, I have been just to see how I like it. But Lamar Jackson leads the NFL with 130.5 quarterback rating. Now, that's 4 games. He missed this last game. Jared Goff is second with 120.7. And every quarterback, all the way down to Aaron Rodgers, who's 10th, or over 100, he has 102.6. So you've got Jackson, Goff, Darnold, of Josh Allen after that game, 108.4. And very interestingly, going into that game between the Bills and the Patriots, Allen and May both had very similar stats. And even after that game, Josh Allen has a quarterback rating of 108.4. Drake May has a quarterback rating of 107.8. So still very close. All right. Now what we'll do is every week we'll look back and we'll see who's made a big change here. Who's dropped out of the top 10, who's come into the top 10, and that sort of thing. So will Lamar Jackson be able to stay on the top? He's got a big lead over second, but this is still only 5 games in. So we'll see what happens. Also, I'll be looking at the all-time stats here in a minute. And obviously, when we're this early into the season, we're going to speculate as to who might be able to break into the top 10 all-time numbers, being that we're only 5 games in. So looking at Matthew Stafford in the passing yards, he leads the NFL with 1,503. So he's averaging just over 300 yards a game right now. Dak Prescott second with 1,356. So he's got a big lead, 100 almost 150 yards over Dak Prescott. But third is even farther back. Daniel Jones for the Colts has 1,290 yards. So there's even a decent-sized gap between second and third. And then after that, they kind of do bunch up from that point down. Patrick Mahomes with that game last night did move up into the top 10 this week. with 1,257 yards. So right now, Matthew Stafford's leading in that category. Now in touchdown passes, Jared Goff leads the NFL with 12 touchdown passes already in 5 games. So pretty decent average there. And what we're looking at here is, as I said, the possibility of somebody reaching one of the, all-time numbers here. So if you speculate out with 12 touchdown passes over 17 games, not quite going to make the top, maybe might make the top 40. So we'll have to watch that. Same with Matthew Stafford, 11 touchdowns. He's second, 11 touchdowns. Then you've got 3 quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson with 10, as well as Tua Tagovailoa. They all have 10. And Jackson's missed a game, and he's still right up here at number 3, tied for third right now. And I've only got a total of 8 quarterbacks here because after Sam Darnold and Josh Allen both have 9 touchdown passes, there's quite a few quarterbacks that have 8, so I didn't bother. And the same goes for interceptions. This is a rough category here if you're on this list. But Geno Smith has 9 interceptions already this season. That's not good. And not for somebody that they brought in with all the hopes they had over the quarterbacks that the Raiders had the previous year and how much of an improvement they thought they'd have, and it just hasn't worked out. Now, Jake Browning, he's a backup. He's already got 8 interceptions, and he's only played basically 2.5 games, so it's not good for him either, and they're talking about possibly seeing if there's somebody that could replace him. And I don't know who that would be, but we'll see. Joe Flacco, 6 interceptions, but he wasn't playing last week either, but he's still he's number 3. And then Trevor Lawrence moved out of a tie with several other players with 4. He moved into 4th with 5 interceptions, which he had that in that game Monday night. Should not have been an interception. When you see it, when I saw it initially, I thought, I don't even see who the receiver is that's supposed to be catching this pass that was intercepted. And then when they took a more overhead look at it, you saw the receiver just be knocked on his rear end as he was heading in the direction where the ball was going to be passed. No call was made. It was a big miss there by the referees. It did not stop the Jaguars from ultimately winning that game, though. All right, now looking at which quarterbacks have been sacked the most. Well, it's a rookie, just as it was last year when Caleb Williams racked up so many sacks. And thankfully for Caleb Williams and the Bears, if you're a fan of them, he is not even in the top 10 this year. So he's really improved his quarterback play as far as staying from being sacked. But Cam Ward for the Titans has 19 sacks to lead the NFL. Now, he is on a pace right now to set a record, so he needs to slow down. Drake May has 17, though, so he's been sacked quite a bit as well. Both of these quarterbacks, sometimes you look at it and you think it's because partly I feel like the receivers are not the best on either of these teams. Now, Diggs did have a good game, but still, I think it takes a little bit of time for the receivers on these teams to get open sometimes because they're not the best, and that causes the quarterbacks to hold the ball a lot. Also, a lot of times a college quarterback expects receivers to be wide open like they are in college, and it's not the same. They have to be able to fit that ball into a tighter window than they're used to. So that's a little bit of it. But right now, Cam Ward, 19 sacks, Drake May, 17. And then you've got Geno Smith, Kyler Murray, and Justin Herbert with 16 sacks apiece. Lamar Jackson, 15 sacks, and like I said, he's missed a game, as well as Jalen Hurts. These are 2 of the top quarterbacks, and they're being sacked quite a bit. Those are some of your top ones. I plan on posting these up as little charts as you're watching the video on YouTube. Due to a vacation I'm starting, I'm just trying to get this out there with the information at this point in time. All right, let's look at the running backs here, or rushers in general. Jonathan Taylor Pace dropped off for him and James Cook, but Jonathan Taylor still leads the NFL in rushing so far this season with 480 yards. Going into the game, he had been averaging 100 yards a game. Now he's dropped under that, but still leading the NFL over James Cook, who's second with 450 yards. He also did not have as many yards. Now, Javonte Williams jumped right up there over Travis Etienne, who had been third. Javonte Williams with the Cowboys now is third with 447 yards, so he almost caught James Cook as well. Travis Etienne's right behind him with 443 yards in fourth. And then there's a drop down to J.K. Dobbins with 402. And even another drop down to Kyron Williams, who's sixth for the Rams with 368. So a big drop down there. Those are your top six. Breece Hall had a good game to move up into seventh. He had over 100 yards, so he has 351. And Ashton Genty, he only had an average game as far as rushing goes, had a decent game when you combine the passing yards he had, or the receiving yards he had as well. But he's got 349. Quinshon Judkins for the Browns has been very impressive. 347 yards, and you have to remember that he's just coming into his own. He didn't even start the season. So he's looked really good. I think with all the problems the Raiders' offensive line has in their blocking scheme, which is just a disgrace, I could see Judkins being the number one rookie as far as rushing yards go. And then Kenneth Walker's 10th for the Seahawks with 330 yards. Now looking at rushing touchdowns, Jonathan Taylor leads here as well, which is very interesting because he didn't have any in the first couple of games. Now he's got 6. He's had 2 games with 3. That's how he got the 6 already. But the touchdowns have been getting stolen by Jones, a quarterback, and they've slowed that down and given the ball to Jonathan Taylor, and he's been making the best of it. Now, Javonte Williams and James Cook both have 5 touchdowns apiece. And then there's several, in fact, 7 players with 4 touchdowns right now, rushing touchdowns. All right, let's look at the receivers. Puka Nacua continues to stay up on top with receptions and yards, actually, but receptions, 52 receptions already. He still continues to average over 10 receptions a game, and that's incredible. And Jake Ferguson stayed up there as well. He's got 41 receptions. The tight end for the Cowboys is the number 1 receiver. They're the top 2. Christian McCaffrey, running back for the 49ers, has 39. So you've got a wide receiver, tight end, and running back as your top 3 receivers. So you got 1 player over 50, 1 over 40. That's Ferguson, over 40 receptions, and then Christian McCaffrey with 39. Amon-Ra St. Brown is 4th for the Lions with 35. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba for Seahawks has 34. And you have Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson with 33 apiece. Jamar Chase, this is going to be a little up and down for him, but he's got 32 receptions right now to be 8th right now in the NFL this season. And Deebo Samuel for the Commanders has 30. He's been playing quite well with McLaurin out of the game. Now, looking at receiving yards, Puka Nacua's big lead here as well, 588 yards. So he's averaging well over 100 yards a game so far, basically almost 115 to 20 yards a game. Jackson Smith-Njigba with another big game's over. He's got 534 yards, so he also is averaging over 100 yards a game. They're the only 2 over 500 yards, and they're a decent amount over 500. Justin Jefferson's 3rd with the Vikings with 449. And then Emeka Egbuka, the rookie wide receiver for the Buccaneers, 4th with 445 yards. Big game for him yesterday, or on Sunday, I should say. And then there's a decent drop down to number 5, which is Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions with 407. So almost a 40-yard drop. They're the only 5 players over 400 yards. And then you've got Christian McCaffrey, only running back in the list, and the only non-wide receiver on the list as well. Christian McCaffrey has 387 yards receiving. Let me look at him. And he doesn't even make the list as far as rushing yards, even though he's had plenty of rushes as well. So you can see where he's making a lot of his yards, and in fantasy why he's doing so well. Now, Garrett Wilson's 7th. He had a good game, 382 yards. Quentin Johnston, who was up there, is starting to slow down. Him and Zay Flowers both have 377 yards. And the Ravens they look horrible. They gotta get Jackson back in there, and then they need to get their defense back in shape. They got so many injuries on defense. It's rough to watch them play right now. Same with the Bengals. Jamar Chase for the Bengals had 374 yards to be number 10. Receiving touchdowns, that is Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions with 6 receiving touchdowns. Only one was 6. There are 3 players with 5. Pickens for the Cowboys, Odunze for the Bears, and Egbuka for the Buccaneers have 5. So right now you got an interesting race here I don't know about the quarterbacks as far as rookies go, but we'll talk about this a little bit when we talk about rookies in a day or two. Who's the number 1 rookie as far as rookie of the year? All right, looking at the defense. Devin Lloyd for the Jaguars leads the NFL in interceptions with 4. Going into this game, he was tied with Bayard, Pitre, and Joseph with 3. Had a huge, I'm talking huge. He was defensive player of the month, and he comes up with a 90. I thought it was a 99. I've heard 97 or 99-yard interception return of Mahomes. Intercepted the ball down near the goal line, ran it all the way back. He was huffing and puffing by the time he got to the goal line, but he made it in for a touchdown. Interception number 4 for him. So he leads the NFL with 4 interceptions, and what a timely interception it was at that time. Tackles for loss. You've got Myles Garrett, Max Crosby leading the NFL with 8 apiece, and then you have 4 players with 7. One of those being Nick Benito for the Broncos has 7 tackles for loss. And I mention that because he's also leading the NFL in sacks with 7 over several players who have 5. So no one else even has more than 5, and he's got 7. So he's definitely putting up some big numbers right now. All right, so let's look at some of these numbers and see if any of them have a chance of breaking into the top 10. And with the quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford has a chance. He's got over 1,500 yards, and when you figure that out over 17 games, that does push him up around the 5,000 mark. He has to get over 5,100 yards to make the top 10, which is obviously extremely difficult. The last time it was done was by Patrick Mahomes in 2022 when he had 5,250 yards, which was the 4th best all time. Peyton Manning's number 1 all time in passing yards in a single season with 5,477. He did that in 2013, breaking Drew Brees' record that he had set in 2011 by 1 yard. The only other player currently playing that's in this top 10, which would be somebody be hard to guess, but Jameis Winston for the Buccaneers in 2019 had 5,109 yards. Incredible. What's also incredible, 2 years later, it's Tom Brady for also now playing for the Buccaneers that had the 3rd best number all time with 5,316 yards. So you got 2 players on the Buccaneers within a couple years of each other making it into the top 10 passing yards all time. The big difference, obvious, between Brady and Winston is Winston would throw as many interceptions almost as he did touchdown passes. Otherwise, he's a fun player to watch, but wow, you just don't know sometimes. So I would say the only quarterback at this point in time, and obviously it's early, is Stafford that could possibly make this list. And then with the touchdowns, you do have Goff with 12 already touchdowns. That's going to make it a little tough to make it. You got to have at least 43 touchdowns to make the top 10. And we'll have to watch and see how that goes. Right now, it's going to be a little tight. Only 3 players have thrown for over 50. No one's on that kind of a pace. Peyton Manning had 55 in 2013, the same year he set the record in passing yards. Current players on this list, and sadly, was Joe Burrow with 43 last year, in fact. And I fully expected him to be up here again this year, except for the injury. That was just didn't seem like he would have such an injury on that kind of a. It looked like he was just kind of gradually falling down, but it was enough to take him out for probably the season, or at least most of it. But Aaron Rodgers is on this list twice, number 5 and number 8 position. He's had 48 in 2020 and 45 in 2011. Not the only player, but he's the only player active who's been on here twice. And then Patrick Mahomes is one of those 3 players that had 50 touchdowns in a single season. In 2018, he had 50 exactly. All right. So I don't think anybody at this point in time is nearing that. No one's going to be on this interception list probably ever. Jameson Winston's the last one to even make the top 10. He had 30, like I said, in 2019 when he threw for all those yards. He also threw 30 interceptions. Now, when it comes to sacks, this is a number right now where a couple of players are approaching the number. Last year, Caleb Williams, like I said, tied 3rd all-time in the sack department, being sacked 68 times, which is good enough to tie David Carr for 3rd all-time. And David Carr also holds the number 1 number with 76. So they're on this list, as is Sam Howell, who was with the Commanders in 2023. He had 65 sacks, which is one of the reasons he doesn't play for them anymore. Deshaun Watson, when he was with the Texans and before he got paid all that money to sit at home, he had 62, as did Bryce Young in his rookie year, had 62. This season, another rookie's up there, Cam Ward, 19 already. I mean, he's definitely on a pace to break the 60 mark, as possibly is Drake May. So we got a couple of players to watch and see if they will get sacked that many times. In the rushing department, no one is really on a pace to break into the top 10. Right now, the leading rusher is Jonathan Taylor, but he's not even averaging 100 yards a game. Nobody is. And if you're not averaging more than 100, you're not going to make it. The lowest number here, and Earl Campbell had over 1,900 yards in 1980. Now, that was on a schedule with, I believe, 14 games. So, but even with 17 games, you got to have more than 100 to make the top 10. Saquon Barkley did it last year with 2,005 yards to make it. One of only 9 players to have 2,000 yards in a single season. Derrick Henry did it in 2020 when he had 2,027 yards. Boy, after his first game, Derrick Henry's first game, he thought he could be on a pace for that again. But after that game, he's just basically dropped off the map. And with the way the Ravens are, he doesn't even get on the field as much anymore because he's not much for receiving. Same with the touchdowns. Right now, there's 5 players that are tied for 6th with 21 touchdowns in a single season. So, I don't see anybody on that pace exactly. I mean, I tell you what, if Jonathan Taylor has a couple more 3 touchdowns in a single game, he could put himself in position. Right now, he's borderline around the 20 mark. So we'll see if he could possibly do it. All right, looking at receivers, here's one definitely. In the tied for 9th, Jamar Chase last year had 127 receptions to make it into the top 10. Tied with Stephon Diggs, who had 127 receptions in 2020. Tells you how good he has been, and he may be starting to show some life for the Patriots as well. But Puka Nacua already has 52 receptions. I mean, he's on a pace for 170 receptions. So we'll see. He definitely has a chance to get into this top 10 number and possibly break the mark, which Michael Thomas holds for the Saints. In 2019, he had 149 receptions in a single season. That's the record right now. And we'll watch Puka Nacua. He is on pace for that already. As far as receiving yards, he's also on pace to possibly make it into the top 10. Like I said, 17 games. Number 10 is Charlie Hennigan, who played in 1961 for the Houston Oilers at the time. He had 1,746 yards. Remember, that was on 14 games. So that's really impressive. But when you're averaging 100 yards a game, you're on pace to make it into the top 10. And right now, we've got two receivers doing just that with Puka Nacua and Jackson Smith-Njigba, both well over 500 yards. So they're averaging, much better than 100 yards a game. So we'll watch those two to see if they're going to be able to break into the top 10 receiving yards, and then Puka as well as in receptions. Now, receiving touchdowns, here's a possibility. There's 10 players tied for sixth with 17 receiving touchdowns, including last year Jamar Chase, who had the Triple Crown, having the most receptions, the most receiving yards, as well as the most touchdowns. So he led the NFL in all those categories last year. All right, we'll stop it with that. Right now, there's nobody as far as sacks go that I think can break into those types of records. Not at this point, and we'll look at those again when we have a chance. All right, we'll wrap that up. And that's a look at our season so far. You've got a few standout players right now as far as quarterback, Stafford, receiver, Puka Nacua, and running back. You've got Jonathan Taylor. So those are our three top players at this point in the season. 5 games in. We'll see what happens as we continue on. A lot of time to go. Things could change, obviously. Appreciate you listening. You can find this podcast on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL. Like I said, my plan is to start putting these stats right up there on the screen as I'm talking so you can see them. But I'm still getting the hang of that aspect. I'm just trying to get this done in the next day here, these podcasts. Appreciate you listening. You can also find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast apps. If you can't, let me know. You can let me know on YouTube. You can just leave something in the chat, or you can email me at justthestatsnfl@gmail.com. Again, thanks for listening, and please subscribe and like. Appreciate that as well. All right, that is a wrap for this episode, so I am out.